Titans, you're up. This is going to be a bit of a double whammy, as there's two versions of this setup, which both kinda do the same thing, but are also different enough that I consider them separate builds. One's a pure void setup that will make entire rooms purple with volatile, and one's prismatic that focuses a lot more on crowd control and ability spam. I do think Prismatic slightly ekes out ahead as far as power goes, but the Void version for me is much more fun to play with how amazingly explosive it can get. Here's the quick Void build. Aspects are Controlled Demolition, Offensive Bulwark, Suppressor Grenade, Shield Throw, Barricade as personal preference. Fragments are Persistence, Harvest, Starvation, Expulsion. This is your mod setup. Super can be Twilight Arsenal or Sentinel Shield. Exotic Armour is Second Chance, and I'd really encourage you to run Black Talon. Its synergy with the build, plus the buffs it's received, make it a real powerhouse. You'll want a gun that has Repulsor Brace, Destabilizing rounds too. For your Prismatic variant, aspects are Knockout, Dragon's Lash, Grenade can be anything, although Glacier is great for Dark Transcendence, Shield Throw, class can be Thruster or Rally. My personal preference is Thruster. Fragments are Awakening, Blessing, Hope, Purpose, and that last spot is extremely flexible. I'd recommend Hammer of Soul for super, so Purpose gives restoration, but Glacial Quake and Blade Fury work pretty well too. Exotic is Second Chance. Weapons are more flexible in this build as you need to focus on building Transcendence, but Black Talon is still great here, as well as a Destabilizing rounds Repulsor Brace gun. Right, let's kick it off with the Exotic that brings both these builds together and that has been on the receiving end of some very nice buffs. Second Chance. I know it hasn't been in a great state for a little while, but please don't click off yet. Why don't you just give it a chance? Yeah, I'm pretty funny. It still has all the functionality that it previously had. Still gives another shield throw charge, shield throw still weakens, and it still breaks barrier champ shields and refunds the melee charge when doing so. New to this Exotic though, whenever you land a final blow with shield throw, you'll spawn in a void breach, and picking up a void breach now gives back 20% melee energy on top of the 12.5% it already gives back for class. And that's really the only subclass agnostic thing to talk about. So just because it's the version that I dig a lot more, let's talk about the purple one first. Void Titan, my beloved. This is the version I enjoy much more because of how explosive it feels, which is entirely down to Controlled Demolition. Void ability hits and volatile detonations spread volatile, and anytime volatile detonates, yourself and allies heal 90 HP. Second Chance's whole shtick is that you get 2 melees, and now more melees through Void Breaches, so more abilities for Controlled Demolition to use. These two really feel like they were meant for each other. Exactly like how Offensive Bulwark feels like it was meant for Second Chance too, because you get all of these effects so long as you have Void Overshield active, which again is Second Chance's whole shtick. More shield throws means more overshield, means more bulwark uptime. And those two aspects are the big reason why Destabilizing rounds Repulsor Brace gun is so good here, because it'll make these two aspects feel so much more active in the build outside of what abilities can do here. Destabilizing Controlled Demo is loads of healing and purpley explosions, then Repulsor for loads of bulwark uptime from Overshield. For your Fragments, Persistence, Harvest, Starvation, Expulsion. This one makes a Void Breach and an Orb on killing a weakened target. This one gives Devour on picking up a Void Breach or an Orb. This one makes Void buffs last longer. This one makes enemies who died from a Void ability kill kaboom in a Void explosion. Your super is flexible. Sentinel or Twilight Arsenal are both great picks here. Bubble, only if you're some kind of madman. So that's everything that you have to use. And though it's something you don't have to take in the build, I'd really encourage you to run Black Talon here, because the sword alongside Second Chance turns it into an absolute monster thanks to its buffs. It got a few small ones, more ammo reserves, heavy attacks cost less, and now it has duelist trans, but the big changes are that its heavy attack now suppresses, and heavy attacking a suppressed enemy will spread suppression, which in a pinch is a great way to crowd control bunched enemies. This is also the reason I'm running Suppressor Grenade. It's a nice combo to throw the nade, suppress a few enemies, then heavy attack to spread that suppression even more. On top of all of that, with its catalyst, when you hit an enemy, for each void debuff they have on them, you get a 10% damage boost, which pairs up so well with Controlled Demolition second chance. You throw the shield, that enemy is now weakened and volatile, then follow up with Black Talon to suppress, and now you've got a sword that'll be chunking with a 30% damage bump for 2 seconds. I know 2 seconds doesn't sound like a lot of time, but with how consistently you maintain weaken and volatile in the build, and with Talon suppressing on its lonesome, it's damage buff basically the entire time. So all of that out the way, your gameplay. For a Titan build, it is surprisingly high action per minute, as there's 2 things you need to be doing fairly consistently to make this feel really good. First is maintaining your Destabilizing rounds buff, which hopefully the footage shows a decent example of, but doing it is important. It's your healing from Controlled Demolition, it lets Black Talon damage buff itself as volatile rounds can be passed over to other void weapons, and if you're landing kills on a gun roll with Repulsor Brace, it's overshield, which means offensive bulwark uptime is going to be really good. And the second thing you've got to do is finishers. One of the gripes I had with the build originally was that whilst Void Breachers were great at giving melee energy, their class regen effect was a bit of a nothing burger in the build. It still kind of is, to be fair. Having more class abilities in this build doesn't really do much. That said, because we're able to make a lot of breaches, this build can make really good use of charged up, elemental charge, and stacks on stacks to give some extremely reliable armor charges, which you'll turn into melee energy through 1-2 finisher. 2 breaches will give an armor charge, which then turns into 2 charges from stacks on stacks, then alongside orbs made from heavy-handed, which you can make from shield throw, and unpowered melees whilst you have void overshield, plus orbs made from Echo of Harvest, it gives you a really nice way to make more shield throws. At 4 charges, you'll get 80% of your melee back, and as breaches give 20% melee back, you're never far off from having another shield throw. Word of warning, you'll only be able to trigger this when you have no shield throw charges left. It doesn't give energy when you already have a charge, so only finish it when you have no shield throws to use. Apart from those 2 things, finishers and destabilizing rounds, there's not much more to the gameplay of this build. It's very quintessential Void Titan. You're blowing up a lot of stuff with volatile, and generally not dying from how much overshield and healing you'll be able to tap into. The only other things I'll say is that this build very uniquely uses Void Breachers for healing. Echo of Starvation triggers Devour when you pick up an orb or a Void Breach, and a passive Devour triggering is getting a 70 HP chunk of healing. But as Second Chance can get around the cooldown of Void Breachers, you can start to spawn in these really frequent spots of healing where for just getting to them, you heal and extend Devour. And if you've got a combo of an orb and a breach, it's a 140 HP heal. I know it's just the firing range on screen, which is obviously unrealistic to expect in normal gameplay, but it hopefully gives an idea of how much healing there can be around where you're fighting from breaches and starvation. Also remember that unpowered melees while overshield is active will be counted as void melee ability hits, so will spread volatile, which will heal with controlled demolition, and any unpowered melee kills will also give a little chunk of void overshield back whilst you have an overshield active, plus also trigger heavy-handed. In this build, Black Talon is also where the majority of your burst damage is coming from, but should be treated almost like a swap weapon. Each heavy attack with it costs 50% energy, but as we've got Lucent Blade on our chest piece, the energy comes back insanely quickly. So you can fire off 2 shots, stow it, and the moment energy is back to anything above 50%, you can double heavy attack, as even with just 1% sword energy, it'll still count as a full damage powered heavy attack, which is really nice against healthy enemies like champs. Speaking of, when dealing with champs, don't forget this Pris barrier shields. It's a one-shot to the shield and it gives back an entire charge for free. Black Talon is also suppression, so is your grenade, both of which are great at dealing with overloads. This build does also have a really cool interaction, specifically with Sentinel Shield, where the shield throw during super will receive almost all of Second Chance's effects. It will weaken enemies, spawn Void Breaches on landing final blows, and can pierce Barrier Champ shields. The Barrier Champ pass is very finicky though. If you throw this from a distance, the thing will ricochet off, but if you're literally holding hands with the champ and throw it next to them, it'll be a clean break. I'm assuming this is bugged and hopefully will be adjusted to work from a distance in the future. That Void Breach part is also really nice in that you can throw out shields before going into super, and so long as you're landing kills with the super shield throws, you can get back those melee charges really consistently from how many Void Breaches you make. For your armor sets, as this build has a lot of healing through Devour and Controlled Demolition, anything that gives damage resist is really nice here. Aeon Renewal 2, Aeon Adapter 2, Bushido's 4, Ferropotence 2, Smoke Jumpers 2, and Swordmasters 2 and 4-piece. At least one of anything I just mentioned will serve you really nicely in keeping you extra healthy. Your stat priority should be high melee, high grenade, high super. If you can, try get melee above 100, although I know the secondary stat for Brawler Armor is health stat, which is kinda bad, so don't stress about getting this too high if it comes at the cost of other stats. For your mod setup, double Heavy Finder on the helmet so Black Talon can do more Black Talon shenanigans, and one Harmonic Siphon. Arms is triple heavy-handed, chest is a charged up, melee damage resist, and Lucent Blade. Legs are stacks on stacks, elemental charge and innovation, classes 1-2 finisher, powerful attraction, and Reaper. For the seasonal artifact with this build, it's stacked with amazing choices as there's so much void synergy going on. Gravitic Voltaic Charge, Elemental Siphon, Riposte, Power from Pain, Singularity Blade, Combination Argent Blade, Armor Smith, which is a 10% DR on 100% increased melee damage for 6 seconds on breaking a shield, Void Infestation, then Kinetic Rupture or Sword Storm combo. Cool, that about wraps it up for the Void version. Prismatic, you're up. Like I said at the start, I think this version is slightly better than the Void one for 2 reasons. First is that the Void Breach's given class energy back now becomes an extremely useful part of the build, and second is that Transcendence exists and makes shield throws extremely spammy, which means more breaches, which in turn means more shield throws and class abilities. So kicking it all off. Aspects, with your first being Dragon's Lash. This is the entire reason why Void Breaches are great here, because you can trigger suspension through class abilities much more often. Between Thruster and Rally, it's really up to you. I prefer Thruster as it feels like it never really gets in the way of my gameplay, but this is 100% personal preference. Second is Knockout, which you can think of like an alternative to Offensive Bulwark, in that it's great at boosting melee damage and enabling heavy-handed. Whenever you break an enemy's shield or drop an enemy to below 30% HP, you get increased melee damage, extra lunge distance, and unpowered melees now count as arc-powered melees for 6 seconds. Plus, whenever you land a melee kill, you get amplified and restore health. For your fragments, you'll want Awakening, Blessing, Purpose, Hope. This is a reliable way to make Void Breaches, where 3 rapid elemental final blows make the pickup. This makes melee final blows trigger health regen. This gives you a buff depending on your equipped super. This gives bonus class regen for having elemental buffs. And then the last spot is really flexible. You want more DR, you want Radiant, you want literally anything here. The choice is up to you. Grenade can be anything, although Glacier Grenade always was really nice for helping out that Dark Transcendence. Melee is obviously Shield Throw, and class, again, Thruster or Rally. For your super, I would say Hammer of Soul is my first pick. Reason for having hammers above the rest is that Restoration from Facet to Purpose always felt really impactful in keeping me alive, whereas the others were just good for survivability, but both of them on ending will give double melee refreshes, which is really nice. Plus the last 2 are dark damage, which is good for Transcendence. Okay, for actually using the build. This thing loves to play aggressively, and it can get away with doing so because Dragon's Lash is up so often. But it's got the added benefit of making Shield Throw much easier to land, as it can ricochet off enemies that are standing completely still from suspension. A lot of the playstyle of this build will feel very much like the Void version. You're still using the exact same mod setup, so prioritizing finishers to get melee charges back is something you'll be wanting to do, and working in a repulsor based weapon to play off weaken from shield throw is still generally the same. I'll even still use Black Talon here, just that I rely much more on destabilizing rounds rather than controlled demolition to get volatile. But weaken and suppression will still be as present in this build as the Void one. The big difference though is that healing is no longer tied to volatile detonations and devour, rather melee final blows and faster purpose. Again, the big reason I like throwing hammers is that it puts the healing of the build very on par with its Void counterpart, but with all the ability spam that Prismatic naturally brings to a build. And the second pretty obvious difference is Transcendence, which for basically the entire duration makes you borderline unkillable. It's so much spam of abilities, you plaster Overshield on yourself for the entire duration from how many shield throws you get, you make Void Breaches which feeds into Dragon Slash and more shield throws. If you actually manage to die during Transcendence with this build, I'm pretty impressed. That is a difficult thing to do. That said, in order to get to Transcendence, you will need to focus on dealing dark damage, so anything efficient at building dark Transcendence like Air Denials can really help out. Light damage though is built more naturally through shield throws, so you never have to stress too much about building that up. And I know I've been glazing Black Talon a fair bit, although with this build you can maybe potentially switch him. It's not as if it's massively weaker in the Prismatic version, just that the heavy spot could be used for dealing dark damage, which again is quite nice for Transcendence. For your arm sets, literally identical to the previous build, Aeon Renewal 2-piece, Aeon Adapted 2-piece, Bushido's 4, Ferropotence 2, Smoke Jumpers 2, and Swordmasters 2 and 4-piece. At least one of anything I just mentioned will serve you really nice again in keeping you healthy. Your stat priority should be high melee, high grenade, high super, and now also high class. Same as before, if you can, try and get melee above 100, but not if it comes at the expense of your other stats. For your mod setup and seasonal artifact, they're both exactly the same as the Void Titan build, which at this point you've either already watched, but if you've skipped ahead, watch from this point. The only difference for mods is that you're switching Harmonic Siphon on the helmet for Void Siphon, and whilst nothing about the seasonal artifact changes in regards to what you take, Power from Pain gives you access to Devour, which Prismatic Titan could only otherwise do through Mask of the Quiet One or Buried Bloodline. And it lets you tap into the absolutely diabolical combo of Devour, Restoration, Void Overshield, and Amplified. And that's a wrap. I hope you enjoy the builds. It's something a bit different for both subclasses, with both being genuinely strong. I know people might scoff at Second Chance considering the state that it has been in for a while, but these have been some really good changes that have given it the chance to bring something new to both Prismatic and Void. That's about it from me though. See ya!